بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We'll look at, and you'll understand, I'll only recite a couple of ahadith in front of you as to how strongly Masumeen have said, do not fast on this day. The reason behind it. You will say, well, you know, a person might come up and say, fasting, Quran says, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. Fasting is a mustahab act. Aside from Ramadan, if one fasts seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing wrong with it. That is understood. But when you fast with intentions other than that, then the same fast becomes haram. The same way, Masjidun ussisa ala taqwa, the Quran, ayat of Quran says, the masjid which is based and established on the concept of piety and taqwa, and taqwa, it is important that you go ahead and stand in this masjid. But the masjid which was not established on the basis of taqwa, you should not stand in this masjid. You should not establish that masjid, and you should not pray in that masjid. Which masjid was that? Masjid al-Zirar, which was built. I talked about it earlier, so I'm not going to go into the details of that. How it was built by the munafiqun, and the ayat of Quran was revealed in this regard, and Prophet went ahead and said, do not pray in this mosque. So the concept, same thing goes with Habil and Qabil. What did he say? إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only accepts from those who are muttaqeen. So as long as there's taqwa behind the act, as long as there's taqwa behind the actions even prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that act is something which is acceptable. Otherwise, that act is not worth anything. That is in regards to the support, as to if someone comes up says, why not fast? Fasting is mustahab. If one wants to fast, aside from those days which it is haram to fast, for example, first day of Shawwal or 10th of, for example, Zil Hijjah, that is for a reason. Why can't we fast on any other days? This is the reason behind it. If it's done for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that act all of a sudden is not considered to be, not only it's not recommended, it is actually recommended to stay away from such an action. We have the first hadith from Muhammad ibn Muslim, was Zurara ibn Ayun, from our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. إذا كان صومه قبل شهر رمضان فلما نزل شهر رمضان ترك. This is in Man La Yahduru al-Faqih. That this was a fast which was done before Ramadan. Once the fasting in the month of Ramadan became wajib, it was nullified, it was, avoided, it was abandoned. At least from this hadith, we also learned that in Shia Ahadith, fasting was there. So we're not denying the completely that fasting was not there. It might have been there before. So according to the hadith, which is in Man La Yahduru al-Faqih, fifth Imam is saying, fasting on this day was there before Ramadan, but after Ramadan, it was avoided, it was nullified. Secondly, from our fifth Imam, he says, Sawmun matrukun bin nuzul shahr Ramadan wal matruku bid'atun. This is where some of our scholars deduce that it is actually haram to fast. Why this hadith right here? This is Sawmun matruk. It was a Sawm, it was a fast which was avoided. Matruk, tark, nasikh, mansukh. The ayat of nasikh and mansukh. If a hukum comes, the previous hukum is nullified. This was matruk after the month of Ramadan became wajib. And therefore that which is matruk, that which has been told to be abandoned, is considered to be bid'ah. And therefore do not indulge yourself into the bid'ah. This is the second hadith, again from Usul Kafi, in the Bab, Sawm Ashura. Third, from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is where Imam completes all of these other ahadith. Aside from mentioning what he had been mentioned by fifth Imam, he says, ذاك يوم قتل فيه الحسين. That was the day قتل فيه الحسين, in which Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam was killed. فإن كنت شامتا فصم. This is where Imam very beautifully leaves it up to you. He said that's what the day Ashura is the martyrdom of Hussein, and if you want to please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. If you want to go ahead and please Banu Umayyah, then go ahead and fast. It's up to you. But then he said, made another, because Banu Umayyah had made another. What did they do? They said, well, if we achieve victory over Hussein, and if we are able to grab hold of this hukumat once again, and complete control of this hukumat, then we'll fast. You know how you make a nazar? That if so and so things happens, then I'll go ahead and fast. Same nazar was made by Banu Umayyah, that if we attain victory, then we'll go ahead and make this day be the day of Eid, and we will fast on that day out of thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being grateful. Imam says, if you want to go ahead and fast, go fast. You will be pleasing Banu Umayyah. You will not be pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Imam says, what is the reward of fasting on the day of Ashura? He goes even a step further ahead. This is in Usul Kafi as well, in the same volume 4, hadith number 6. It says, in this regard, it says, صوم يوم عاشوراء فقال من صامه كان حظه من صيام ذلك اليوم حظ ابن مرجان وآل زياد. He said, the one who fasts on this day, his reward will be same, the reward that was given to Ibn Marjana, Ibn Ziyad, and Al Ziyad. What was the reward of Al Ziyad? A person right away asked, قُلْتُ وَمَا كَانَ حَظُّهُم مِّن ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. What was the reward on that day, O Imam? Of what they had done. What is the reward that they're going to get? Imam said, النَّارُ أَعَاذَنَ اللَّهُ مِنَ النَّارِ وَمِنْ عَمَلٍ يَقْرُبُ مِنَ النَّارِ or يُقَرَّبُ مِنَ النَّارِ. The reward for them was hellfire. And so whoever fasts on this day, according to this hadith, Imam is saying, their reward will also be hellfire. May Allah keep us away from hellfire or things which bring us closer to the hellfire. So you see how step by step Imam is making this thing to be even severe and severe. So we see that second discussion part of the first part of the discussion was the ahadith from Masumeen. I can't go into further details. It'll be all night if we keep on mentioning these ahadith. Second part of the discussion is the view of Shi'i scholars in this regard. What do they say? Some of the Shi'i scholars, there are various saying. Some consider fasting on this day to be haram. For example, Marhume Khurasani, or rather Khunsari, in his book Jami' al-Madarik, this is what he says. He says, this day, because jazma ba'du mutaakhir al-mutaakhirin bil hurmat tarjihan lin-nusu. Some of the contemporaries or the previous scholars have considered fasting on this day to be haram. Why? Because he said, the reason is that he's mentioning, because of that hadith, Imam has said in regards to that how you are going to be pleasing Banu Umayyah in this. And so some of them have considered to be haram on this day. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He said, وَبِالْجُمْلَةِ فَإِنَّ دَلَالَةَ هَذِهِ الْأَخْبَارِ عَلَى التَّحْرِيمِ مُطْلَقًا. This is Hadaiq al-Nadhira, Muhaqqiq Bahrani as well considers fasting on this day to be haram as well. Thirdly, Marhum al-Naraqi, he in his Mustanad al-Shi'a, he says, فَالْحَقُّ حُرْمَةُ صَوْمِهِ فِي هَذَا الْجِهَةِ. It is haram to fast on this day. The reason that they're all giving is because it was matruk, and matruk is considered to be a bid'at, and therefore bid'at is something which is considered to be haram, and therefore you do not indulge yourself into the bid'ah. And so they all consider, these scholars as far as they're concerned, consider this fast to be haram. But we see all the majority of the contemporaries, the fuqaha of our time, even before or the time of some of you, maybe, for example, Ayatollah Burujardi, Ayatollah Hakim, Ayatollah Imam Khomeini, and so on and so forth. Those who have, Ayatollah Yazdi, for example, Sahib Urwa, and those people who have done their commentaries on Urwatul Wuthqa. Majority of them consider fasting on this day not to be haram. Rather, they consider it to be makruh. So they have come down from the level of haram and hurmat, and they consider it to be makruh. Rather, they go ahead and say some consider fasting with the intention of grief and sadness, with the intention that you do not eat and drink until the time of Asr. And then, once you perform Salatul Asr, you go ahead and eat or drink, eat some khaki shifa or drink some water, and you do not continue your fast until ghurub. They say, go ahead and perform this. This is something which is aqrab and closer to some of the ahadith that we have mentioned in front of you. And that is something which is the rivaj that you and I usually have been taught up, brought up doing, that on that day, what do? We do not fast. Rather, it is something which is considered to be a faqah, that you do not make the intention of fasting, and therefore you break it just before the time of ghurub or after the asr prayers. So this is something as far as some of our scholars have talked about. They're basing their opinion on the hadith which Shaykh Tusi has actually mentioned in his book Misbah al-Mutahajjid. He says, Abdullah ibn Sanan quoted from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. He said to Imam in regards to the fast on the day of Ashura, Imam says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ صَوْمَ يَوْمٍ كَامِلًا. Do not make this to be a complete fast on the day of Ashura. وَلْيَكُنْ إِفْطَارُكَ بَعْدَ الصَّلَاةِ الْعَصْرِ. Go ahead and break your or fast or do iftar after the prayers of Asr. بِسَاعَةٍ عَلَى شُرْبَةٍ مِّن مَاءٍ فَإِنُّ ذَلِكَ الْوَقْتُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. This is where the relief had come as far as the all the shuhada had left, and water and other things were brought to the families of Ahlulbayt as far as they were in Karbala. So this is basically what he's deriving, and their opinion from our scholars is also to go ahead and continue as a faqah rather than causing or making it that day to be a complete fast.